Relax now, boys. The teller is here for UFC 302. Dustin Poirier gets another opportunity to fight for the gold in the lightweight division. He's taking on Islam Makhachev. I'm going to tell you guys here in a second why I believe this actually is probably his biggest opportunity at a title. If you compare it to, of course, he had the bout against Max Holloway where he won that fight and became the interim lightweight champion, had the loss against Khabib Nurmagomedov for the undisputed lightweight championship of the world, and then he also had a battle for the vacant lightweight champion after Khabib retired against Charles Oliveira. I feel that I could almost argue that this is the biggest one because, you could easily say it was the Khabib fight, his first opportunity at that undisputed lightweight championship, but at this point in time in his career, near the end of it, if he was able to take out Islam Makhachev, who is arguably the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, which was the same situation kind of Khabib was in, but if he was able to go do this right now at the age of 35, getting redemption against the descendant of Khabib in Islam Makhachev, you could kind of say he's the descendant, the protege. He would be kind of getting back at Khabib as well, and I just think it would be even more special. There's a little bit more backstory there. So I think that this is actually the biggest one here. So if he could win this one, forget about the failed attempt against Oliveira, forget about the failed attempt against Khabib. This is huge right here. And also, if you're following me on Instagram at MMA Fortune Teller _, I'm working on a dope graphic right now. I'm going to be putting out my top 10 pound for pound rankings. And stay tuned to see if I do have Islam as the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world right now. If you're not following me over there on IG, definitely want to go follow me because I'm going to have a lot of dope content leading up to this fight card. And catch me on Twitter as well at the MMA Teller. And before we jump into the first fight, if you're new here, we have the timestamps and we start at the bottom of the card. We work our way up towards the top. And if you're new here, you definitely want to subscribe to this channel. Got great content coming your guys' way. And I'll just let you know real quick, we are powered by BetUS. Check the link in the description of this video. Make an account through that link. You're going to get a 125% match on your first 3 deposits. All right, just letting you guys know that this is a very stacked card. Of course, centered mostly around the main event and co-main event bouts. The Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa is going to be a lot of fun as well. But you take a look at almost every fight throughout this card, and they're all exciting in their own way. Kevin Holland, there's always a little backstory with Holland. We have our own little fun beef that we talk about here. Taking on Michał, Oleksiejczuk, that's a fun fight. Jailton Almeida and Alexandr Romanov, 2 heavy grappling-based heavyweight fighters that are very flaky, that have some serious question marks surrounding them. And Almeida added his name to that mix after his last performance. Romanov's been there for a while, but Randy Brown versus Zaleski dos Santos is a fun fight. Throughout the preliminary fights as well, Kopylov taking on Almeida, Dawson versus Solecki. I just like a lot of these fights. And if you're looking at the first fight here, André Lima, a fighter that I'm very high on, and I'm very excited to see his career progress. Just note, we do know that he has a new opponent. We'll be talking about him versus Mitch Raposo, as Raposo steps in on short notice as the undefeated Mongolian, who was just very successful on the road to UFC, did have to withdraw from the fight. And that's the first fight we'll be talking about, that Raposo versus Lima fight there. So with no further ado, we'll jump over to that fight. Just please, guys, like this video if you can for me, please. It really means a lot to me. I'll just wait a second here. And if you could just like it, please, guys. Did you like it? I don't know. I know a lot of you guys didn't like it right now. I'm going to wait a little longer. All right. Thank you, guys. Let's head over to it.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA Fortune Teller. Yeah.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The teller.
So you guys know how I'm constantly praising the flyweight division. And the reason why I love this division is because not only has it gotten so much deeper throughout the last couple of years, but a lot of the depth in this division are fighters that are very young and very promising, right? They're not aged fighters. Like the middleweight division's filled with fighters that are aged, and you guys know that's like my bottom division. But still, the flyweight division, it's exciting because as we gravitate towards these young fighters, they have so many years for us to watch them deliver. A lot of undefeated fighters, fighters that are just proving to be very well-rounded and complete. And, as I praise all those different fighters in the division, one fighter that's kind of went under my radar is André Lima. Now, he hasn't completely went under my radar, because if you guys remember, I had an official play in him in his last fight against Severino that did cash, and make no mistake about it, that play was cashing regardless if Severino chose to chomp down on his arm or not, okay? There's a reason why he did that, and he was starting to break. Lima had a phenomenal performance. At times we saw Lima put on his butt a little bit and kind of pressed, but I thought that he showcased that he's developing very well as an overall fighter. He gets up very quickly. His takedown defense is getting better and better. And then when it comes to his striking, I'll say right now I have him up towards the top of this division right now with his striking. As young as he is, I know he has a lot of kickboxing experience as well. His striking, when you watch him on tape and when you're watching his fights live, I mean, you see the footwork, the quickness, the technique. He's a problem for anybody in this division in a straight up kickboxing type of fight. So time will show how he rounds his complete game out towards when he's facing the top guys in this division. Some fighters that have more of a heavily grappling oriented attack and whatnot. We'll see how he looks in those types of fights, but I like the development I'm seeing from him at a young age. I love who he's learning under. I like the coach who I used to follow this guy back in the UFC years ago. If you guys are familiar with Lucas Martins, okay, and that's where he's training out of Team Lucas Minero, but that is Lucas Martins, which was a good little fighter in the UFC some years ago. Some of you probably are not familiar with him, but for all you old folks that have been watching the UFC for a long time, you guys remember Lucas Martins there. So, to this specific matchup though, Mitch Raposo, he's 9-1 as a pro right now. After that loss he had on Dana White's Contender Series, he goes on a 4-fight winning streak. He just won the vacant flyweight championship over at Cage Titans against Justin Valentin, who's now 4-2 as a pro. Listen, this isn't André Lima is not Justin Valentin, okay? This is a completely different type of matchup for him. In fact, if you take a look at all the victories that Raposo's been getting as of recently, they were against lower level competition. I have no problem with that though. He's still only 25 years old, and I think that's actually what he needs for his career. He needs to just get cage time, get his confidence going high. I think that it's a smart move, but now he gets matched up with André Lima. This dude's a phenom, and let me also just say Raposo had to take this fight. It's a smart move to take this fight, even when he falls short in this matchup, which I do have him losing this fight. He will get another opportunity to fight in the UFC. The UFC always rewards fighters that come in, take a fight on short notice and whatnot. And remember, Raposo was on The Ultimate Fighter as well, as a decent personality. If he could string off some victories, he could potentially hang around the UFC. He has a wrestling background, right? Fighting, I believe, out of Massachusetts. That's correct. Out of Massachusetts. That did have a wrestling background as he came into the sport of MMA. And he's had some time to round his game out as well. So it's kind of, if you want to go there, it's kind of a striker versus wrestler to an extent, okay? But it's not really at the end of the day, because both of these fighters are well-rounded mixed martial artists. Even Raposo's been knocking some dudes out on the feet as well. I just don't see him finding Lima's chin at all, especially not in this division, in the flyweight division. I don't see him ending him on the feet there. And as this fight plays out, I expect Lima to really pick him apart and hurt him there. And I don't see Raposo holding him down for a significant amount of time, or controlling him down on the mat, or doing anything of significant damage down on the mat, which you guys guessed it. I am going with Lima to get the job done here. Let's go take a look at the betting line. Got it nice and big for you here. André Lima actually opened up as a -250. He touched -300 on over here on one of the few sports books where the lines have been available, because it's a newly added match. And now he went all the way back down to -170. Now he's at a -186. Okay, so I find the line movement kind of intriguing. I have this fight capped right now. I have Lima. I think that you could be getting value on Lima even as high as a -250. Okay, so just to let you guys understand where I'm sitting on this fight, I think André Lima is going to handle business. He has, to go along with the striking advantage, he's going to have a nice 3-inch reach advantage. He's longer. He's 2 inches taller. He has a little bit more length in his legs to work that striking game. And I think his footwork is just going to be too good for Raposo to get in on him. And I like Lima here. I do like Lima here. So yeah, I mean, be careful. Obviously, if this line dips back to the 300 range or 275, it's starting to get up there. But -186, where it's at right now, I think there's value on André Lima to get the job done. Don't forget, we're going to do another video for this card where we're going to dive into all the prop bets, over unders and finishes and whatnot. But I can see André Lima potentially getting a finish here. I mean, his striking is very dangerous. Just note, Raposo's been finished. In his last fight, he was finished via rear naked choke by Jake Hadley, and then had a decision loss on the Ultimate Fighter. So he was actually subbed by Hadley, which Hadley, we're starting to turn our back on Hadley. I'll let you know that right now. I'm not too happy with his past performance there, but listen, anytime Lima's in there, he could potentially stop you via strikes. That's how dangerous he is. This is a fighter that has 5 knockouts out of the limited amount of victories that he has, just eight wins there. There's potential for that, but I'm gonna actually give Raposo a little bit of respect here, and I'm gonna say that he gets beaten up and whatnot, but tries to close the distance and pushes his way to surviving the fight. But André Lima, 30-27 unanimous decision. In the women's bantamweight division, we got Ailin Perez taking on Joselyne Edwards. Ailin Perez always clapping them cakes up in the cage. She's a wild one. She's a fun fighter. Even if you take a look at a lot of her tape before she got into the UFC, she's a wild chick. And there's no question about that. And you know what, though? She's actually a decent fighter. She's an underrated fighter, I would say. Maybe not underrated. I guess it depends your perspective on her. But I know at some points in time, she's been underrated from what I've seen people saying about her. And I think she's actually a UFC caliber fighter that's going to have a decent amount of success throughout the years. Now she's coming off 2 victories in a row. Her UFC debut is where a lot of people thought, and I would say even including myself to an extent, a lot of us thought she was kind of exposed and she really wasn't anything maybe worth signing at the time. She got submitted relatively early against Egger or within the second round there. But you got to love the way she bounced back in her next 2 fights. Has looked really good. But you do notice the level of competition. Ashley Evans-Smith, I believe, is coming off a long layoff, coming out of retirement and whatnot. She has like some type of like UFC sex show or something like that. I don't even know what she's doing. Some freaky thing where they're strapping boots up and all that rubber stuff. Lucy Putty-Lova is not a bad fighter, so that's a respectable victory there, but she's a fighter that's battled hanging on to a UFC contract throughout the years. But nevertheless, I like the way Perez has looked in those fights. Joselyne Edwards is coming off a kind of a tough showing. Some people thought that she actually won that fight. I mean, she had almost 9 minutes of control time against Nora Cornoli, the French striker, the French kickboxer there. But at the end of the day, there's no question about it that Nora, when she did get up to her feet, was landing the damage throughout that fight and deserved to get her hand raised, right? So before that, though, she was on a 3-fight winning streak. Ramona Pascual, a very low-level victory. Ji Young Kim, not too high in that. And then you have a common opponent in Lucy Putty-Lova. Okay, so and before that, she was on a 2-fight losing streak. And the Jessica Rose Clark was not a good showing, to say the least, for her there. And I'll just note also a victory over Yanin Wu. I mean, a lot of low-level action going on here for Joselyne Edwards. She looks the part, has a nice frame. She's a decent athlete. She's still relatively young, so she's still learning. And we could potentially see growth from her. But I'm not that high on her. Now, I do believe that this fight could potentially play out closely. But as I rewatched the Nora fight, Joselyne Edwards' last match, I think that there's some things that were going on in that fight where Ailin Perez can do some similar type of tactics. I think that she could be just the more, what's the term I want to use here? The more, a fighter that has more dog in them, right? And you guys have heard me talk about that recently. There was a fight that took place in the last card, which was nice. We had a clean sweep on that card, but there was a fight that took place in that the Vanessa Demopoulos fight versus the Ducote versus Demopoulos fight, right? Even though I thought Ducote should have got the nod there, the fact that it even played out that closely was just due to the fact that Demopoulos had more dog in her, where Ducote was more technical, but she wasn't as active. And that's something you gotta take note of. And the line was very high in Ducote, and sometimes you just have to be a little wary with that, because Perez is going to be the fighter that has more dog in her. She's going to be the aggressor. Another fight that I just want to note real quick. Even before coming into the UFC, she did have a victory over Tamaris Vidal, who we've been seeing fight in the UFC here recently. It says loss, but that was a fight where she was whooping her and she grabbed the cage, I think, as she was kicking her and whatnot. But that was a fight that she was on route to getting a finish. And I think Ailin Perez is going to get the job done here. I got her winning via decision, just being the aggressor, landing the more damaging strikes. And I think that after she gets the W, she'll be slapping them cakes around the cage and doing some wild stuff. And it'll even start at the weigh-ins too, right? She'll be bringing out the antics to the weigh-ins. So for those of you guys that like that, get a little taste of that going into UFC 302. And let's go take a look at the betting odds here, where we got Ailin Perez. Excuse me here. Let's just get this going here. We got Ailin Perez right now on BetUS. She opened up as a minus 260. Did come down to a as low as a, excuse me here, as a, wants to play games with me here, guys. At minus 215, and now it's back to a minus 250. Okay, so interesting there, because honestly, when I saw this line dipping towards a minus 215, I kind of thought that it would continue to trend that way. I would not have a lot of confidence in Ailin Perez if I was taking her with a tag next to her name like that. I would not feel very confident about that tag. In fact, if I was betting Perez, I would actually want her anything under minus 200. So I'm not in favor of this betting line. All right, I'm telling you guys that right now. I'm not in favor of it. I wouldn't touch her unless she was at least a minus 190 and down, 195 and down. So I do believe that this line is very, very inflated here. And the value would lie with Joselyne Edwards, where you can get her on BetUS right now at a plus 200. Getting 2-to-1 odds on Edwards is where the value would be. But just to give you guys an idea from a betting perspective here. But all in all, I do like Ailin Perez to edge this fight out. There you guys go, the Young Bucks, to slightly win this fight here. And again, let me just say real quickly, you guys, I'm gonna tell you guys how I see these fights going down. All right, as I break down the tape and what I really see here. But I do also need to dissect the betting value and where the line is. Okay, if you guys don't understand that, you guys aren't really on the level. You're new to the game and you just don't fully understand it. Okay, I know some of you guys just want me to sit here and be like, this is exactly what's gonna happen. So I picked Ailin Perez. This is what I see on tape, and this is what's gonna happen. So just start slamming the minus 260 line. Doesn't work like that. Okay, we got to look for the right value. Okay, just understand that. Try to grow with your knowledge of betting on MMA in general. Okay, guys. So I have Ailin Perez winning a decision, but not worth the tag next to her name. In the welterweight division, we got Mickey Gall taking on Bassil Hafez. Mickey Gall returns to the cage, coming off a tough loss there, right? He was finished by Mike Mallet at UFC 273. I was there live for that fight. I was actually very close to the cage when that happened as well. You guys know the teller's always making his rounds around the arenas, and at the time of that fight, it was early on in the card. I was down by the cage, and it was a nice victory there for Mike Mallet before he completely lost all of his stock and fell off a cliff with that last performance against Neil Magny. That was a tough one there. But let me just say this. First and foremost, I'm a Mickey Gall guy, okay? So if you don't know, man, he's doing his thing outside of just fighting. He has a personality. He does a show with a dude that I'm very fond of, Jared. I've had the pleasure of chatting it up with him throughout the years a little bit on IG and whatnot. He used to be on the Patrick Bet David show. If any of you guys watch that, I'm a big fan of that show. And his boy Jared, he used to be one of the original dudes on that show. Okay, I've been following the PPD podcast for a long time, and for whatever reason, they kind of pushed Jared to the side. I was very disappointed to see that, but he does a lot of work with Mickey Gall now. And Mickey Gall has a personality, and he's doing things outside the cage. But as much as I like what he's been doing, I'll be honest, as far as what he's been doing in the cage, and here's my boy Jared over here. If you guys want to give him a follow, Jared don't give a fuck there. So, Mickey Gall, as far as what he's been doing in the cage, it's been pretty rough now. He's on a 2-fight losing skid, just got knocked out pretty bad there. Hasn't been very active. Had the submission victory over Jordan Williams and a decision win over Salim Tohori. He got knocked out by Diego Sanchez, one of Sanchez's last legitimate wins back in 2019. It's just not the best overall resume. Submission against George Sullivan. It's just a lot of lower level victories. The Sage Northcutt was a big one for him back in the day, but even then, Sage Northcutt was just such a green fighter. The CM Punk submission, that was the fight that put him on the map, right? He got that opportunity after taking out Mike Jackson. Big props for taking out Jackson. I cannot stand that dude. But listen, you got to give props to Mickey Gall just for kind of knowing how to market himself. He's not a very active fighter. He's making money different avenues. But, on the other hand, you have a guy in Bassil, Hafez, who has almost the same amount of pro victories, right? They're the same age where a lot of us have just got to know who Bassil Hafez is in his last fight, where he had his UFC debut against Jack Della Maddalena, and he had a phenomenal performance. It's funny to think, like, if he was marketing himself, if he fell into the UFC's lap very early and fell into those situations, fighting guys like CM Punk and all that, we would have known about him for a long time. So they're at different, they took different routes to get here, but they're actually at a very similar point in a way. The difference is this dude Bassil Hafez, to me, is a bad stylistic fight for Gall, because first and foremost, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, has great cardio, and he's also showing that he could throw down on the feet. Okay, Mickey Gall can exploit certain fighters that don't have good grappling. Mickey Gall's base was his jiu-jitsu, right? That was his base coming into the sport of MMA. He's worked on his striking throughout the years. I don't think he's going to be able to exploit Hafez down in the mat, to say the least. And on the feet, I just think that this dude Bassil Hafez is a pit bull. For the performance that he had, taking a fight on short notice against Jack Della Maddalena and slinging with him in the pocket like that. I know he mixed in takedowns as well, but he was brawling out with him. And Jack Della Maddalena, you guys know, I think Jack has some of the best striking in the sport of MMA. Okay, I have him almost as far as boxing goes, I have him right there in the top 5. Okay, so to go out there and do that, and besides just the skill set that Bassil brings into the cage, note he has a crazy gas tank, trains up at altitude, surrounds himself with high-level talent as well. We know that he's gotten to work with Usman, Gaethje, and whatnot. So this isn't a fighter that's going to slow down either. This fight has a little bit of a recipe for disaster for Mickey. I think that Bassil's going to get a knockout on him here, or some type of TKO finish. Mickey comes in this fight after being finished in his last fight, and I could see something very similar happening. Hafez with a 2-inch reach advantage, even though he's a shorter fighter, has a nice little frame for this division. He can do it all. He's a well-rounded fighter, and I got Bassil Hafez getting a first or second round finish in this fight, a TKO finish on Mickey. Bassil opened up as a minus 265. He's now a minus 290. And it's interesting too, because it did dip around a little bit, but I expected it from when it opened at 265 and from that range, I did expect it to continue to come down towards Bassil being maybe a minus 350, 380 type of favorite for this fight. So we have time until the fight takes place. And I think that's where we will see this line trend. I think Hafez will be quite a significant favorite in this matchup, and it's kind of warranted. Again, no disrespect to Mickey. I hope Mickey shows up. I hope he makes it a competitive fight, or I really hope he gets his hand raised. I just think it's going to be a tough challenge for him, and no disrespect towards Mickey, man. And I know Mickey training over at Team Killcliff, getting in some solid work over there. I know he's put in work over in Sarasota, Florida, over there as well. I know Royce Gracie is going to be opening up a big gym over in Sarasota, Florida as well. If you guys didn't know that, Royce was just on the Joe Rogan Experience, but I know that Mickey's been training with some of the dudes over in Sarasota from the Gracie lineage and all that with his jiu-jitsu skills. So we'll see how it plays out for him. It's gonna be a tough one though.
This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
Now this is a rematch of a fight that took place in 2017. Niko Price taking on Alex Morono. Now the first fight had a little bit of an asterisk next to it, and in a variety of ways. Okay, I'll tell you why. First and foremost, Niko Price did find the finish in the second round. The fight was overturned due to a failed drug test for marijuana. So obviously, blasphemy. Niko Price wins that fight. But Niko was losing that fight. Okay, he was losing that fight throughout. Alex Morono was up. He was outpointing him, and Niko caught him with one of those wild strikes that he throws. We know he generates a lot of power, has that long wingspan. He's a wild dude. But unfortunately, Niko Price, he's kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit. Let's be honest here. I mean, he's coming off a knockout loss to Robbie Lawler, a very old Robbie Lawler. That was a horrible look for him. Meanwhile, Alex Morono, 33 years old, almost a similar age, but Morono has just continued to just show that he's as game as it gets in the fight game. Well-rounded, nasty jiu-jitsu. He has a nasty guard if you want to try to take him down. His striking is unorthodox, herky-jerky, but he lands. And I just think that he's like, when you think of a fighter that's like not touching weights and is just putting in that work in the gym, it kind of reminds me of some of my old training partners from back in the day. Just those types of dudes that are just like, they're not that physically imposing, but they just put in a ridiculous amount of time in the gym, and then you see it translate into their skills, right? It's like dudes that like I used to go to school with, and like some of my old teammates were like that, and it would be like the dudes you just feel that you could whoop up because you just feel like you're a better athlete, and you grew up always being able to whoop up a dude like that, but then they put in so much work that they kind of surpass you on the mats and whatnot. All of a sudden their jiu-jitsu's nasty, or their striking's coming around, their timing's good. It's because they just been putting in that work. And Morono is that type of dude, and he's coming off a victory over here over a very old Court McGee, but still a much needed victory for him. Morono, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I like him to do exactly what he was doing against Price the first time they faced off before he got caught, and that is just beating him to the punch, being quicker and sharper and more accurate with his striking. And I think that he can avoid being knocked out by the wildness of Niko Price this time around. And I know besides even that knockout, we've seen Morono caught before, right? He was just knocked out by Santiago Ponzinibbio late in that fight as he was up on the scorecard. So you do have to understand that there is a possibility he can get clipped here again. But I mean, Niko Price, he's just, I just think it's unlikely. Niko Price hasn't finished somebody since the knockout victory over James Vick, which was in 2019. I believe I was there. Actually, I was there. That was the best fight on that card. I believe it was in Tampa, I believe. And that was one of his dope finishes as well. Knocked out Tim Means, knocked out Randy Brown. But these were back in the day. And I don't see him doing the same type of work. I was also, it's funny, I've been at a lot of his fights, a lot of his fights live. I was there for the Phil Rowe fight. And that fight, I was sitting literally 4 rows up from the cage. It wasn't my original seats. I snuck down, but I was sitting right outside the cage. I was sitting right next to like Phil Rowe's brother or something like that. There was this dude that was sitting there where Phil Rowe kept coming over, talking in between the rounds and whatnot. And a lot of dudes from Sanford MMA, a fighter that just took a big L, Tokos, George Tokos. Yeah, you guys know I faded him majorly this past weekend. That's a whole nother thing, but I won't go too much in that. But all those dudes were sitting over there. And nevertheless, I wasn't that crazy about the way Price looked in that fight. I think he won a round. At the end of the day, though, he broke down in the 3rd round and he let that fight go. And I'm just not exactly sure where he's at mentally, while on the other hand, I think Morono is still completely devoured by the fight game. He's still completely in it. And I think Morono gets this W back. He'll also be extremely motivated to catch this W back after taking the L the first time. Not worried about the 4-inch reach disadvantage. Morono has very good footwork. He'll move in and out, close the distance. I think he'll be ahead of Price down in the mat if it goes there as well with his jiu-jitsu. And I have Alex Morono getting the job done, and wouldn't be shocked if we see a 3rd round finish in this fight. Kind of leaning towards a decision, but I would not be surprised if Morono does find a finish in this fight. And let's just know, I mean, Morono, not really finishing dudes that much recently. I had the submission against Tim Means, but other than that, a lot of decision victories, a lot. Dating back to his TK over a very old Cerrone who was on the verge of retirement. I will go with a decision victory for Morono, but I will not be surprised if he gets a late finish over Price as Price continues to get sloppy and makes mistakes in there. Let's go take a look at the betting line. Morono opens up as a -250 on BetUS and goes to 270, and then it trends the opposite way. I've been noticing that with these lines, right? A lot of funny movement, a lot of up and down type action. He's a -240 right now, which is a decent favorite here. I think that's an accurate line. Where it's at right now, I think that's a pretty accurate line. I don't think it's that high, especially if you feel confident that Morono can get the job done here, and I kind of do. I wouldn't be opposed to like a -230 type of line if you kind of want to mix it in something. I'm not high on what I've seen from Price, and I really do feel that he's going to fall short in this fight. Now, if the line continues to trend towards Price's way, obviously you get a better bargain. If you can get Morono at like -200, -190, I like it a lot more there. And as it goes to like 270, 280, 290, if it goes back that way, you're pushing it. Okay. But I wouldn't let this line scare you. 230, 240. I wouldn't let it scare you. Morono is the superior fighter here. Another fight in the welterweight division. We got Phil Rowe taking on Jake Matthews. We were just talking about Phil Rowe with his square head looking like Will Smith. Taking on the Celtic kid here, Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews, he was looking really, really good after his victory against Andre Fiallo. I know he was coming off that submission loss to Sean Brady before that, but people were very high on Brady then. And even though he took a little L, but he bounced back, his stock's very high. I mean, just if you think about the performance he had against Andre Fiallo, though, his stock was very high after that. Now, Andre Fiallo has since went on a 5-fight losing skid, but understand the Celtic kid, Jake Matthews, was the first one to get that TKO finish on him and to really diminish Andre's chin. Andre was a nasty fighter. He was knocking dudes out in the octagon. Jake came into that fight looking as good as we've ever seen him. That was the sharpest version of him that we've ever seen. And after that, he followed up with a very lackluster performance against Matthew Semmelsberger. Really didn't like the way he looked there. Went out there, fought a safe fight against Darius Flowers, got the second round sub. Then he loses to Michael Morales, one of the top undefeated prospects in the game. All right, so a little hard to put your finger on what Matthews is up to these days, but just note he's 29 years old still. He was one of those fighters I always joked around that he was born in the octagon, right? His mom hatched a little egg of him in the octagon. She was some type of amphibian that was hatching eggs, and he was born in the octagon. He's grown up in the UFC, right? He dates back to a very old Ultimate Fighter season. I believe that was was it England versus Australia or something like that? But he was very young at the time. I think he's a good fighter, but I will say this, even though he's 29, as far as he goes with me, I don't think that he's ever really going to be like a solid top 15 fighter in this division. I don't. Even if he tweaks a couple things even now as he hits 32, as he creeps up to like 31, 32 to his prime, I still don't really see him as a top 15 type of fighter. I've been a little discouraged with some of those performances he's had when he had those big moments. He's fallen short. And I wouldn't be shocked if he falls short here on a huge card, taking on a dude in Phil Rowe, who's crafty, who's going to have a 7.5-inch reach advantage, almost 4 inches taller. He's going to have that length advantage. And if Phil Rowe shows up and he has his head on his shoulders, if he's game here, I wouldn't be surprised to see Phil Rowe go out here and sneak off a victory in a close fight. I wouldn't. Now, does he find a finish against Jake Matthews? I don't think so. I don't think he finds that finish. We've only seen Matthews knocked out once. I don't think that Rowe's going to be the dude to knock him out there. I know Rowe has had his fair share of finishes, 10 victories with 60% of them coming away a finish with the knockouts. I don't really see him finishing Matthews. I see this more as a fight that plays out pretty closely. I think that this is one of the more closely contested matches on the card with some moving variables. Like I said, is what version of Matthews is going to show up. But this fight should mix up in a variety of ways. We'll see the striking taking place, which I'll be interested to see if Matthews can use his footwork to close the distance and whip heavy leg kicks and use his boxing skills, which he could potentially have success there. He needs to close the distance, but he knows how to do that. Where I wasn't crazy with Philip Rowe was in his last fight, although it was against Neil Magny, and he's someone that does it as good as anybody, just dragging the fight into deep waters and making it ugly. Neil Magny kind of was able to steal that fight by getting ugly in the clinch and just making it a fight with a high pace. And that wasn't his best performance. Also, you take a look at his victories, and Phil Rowe, you're definitely talking about a lot of low-level victories, even in the UFC, a lot of lower-level victories. Niko Price, Jason Witt. Jason Witt's that wrestler that doesn't have the striking, and he caught him there. Orion Kosi. Definitely the Kosi brothers never lived up to be what we hoped they would be from Dana White's Contender Series. So with that all being said, I think this is a very closely contested match, but I'm not as concerned about that big reach advantage Rowe has. I think Matthews can close the distance. I think this is a fight. I think that this is a fight that plays out closely, and I am going to slightly lean towards Jake Matthews' way. I think that he just will be tough in the clinch, and he'll land the more heavy shots in this fight, and he'll just kind of he'll push towards the judges going his way, which is him landing the more impactful shots. And Rowe will have his moments as well. He'll try to be silky smooth out there with his range, but it will look like Matthews is the bully a little bit more so, I think, and he'll win a close decision victory. Will Jake Matthews? Jake Matthews opened up as a -150 on BetUS. And touched -165 up and down. He's -150 right now. If you like Matthews, maybe you like him a little bit more than I do. I'm not really crazy about betting on this fight. I'll be honest with you guys. If you do like touching this fight, though, if you're catching Phil Rowe at like +140, I think there's value on him there. which you're not going to find that so much right now. You could potentially find him at plus 135. On BetUS, he's a plus 120. So not really an overwhelming amount of value there. Matthews with the comeback at minus 150. Hey, I'm just not crazy about betting this fight in general. Yeah, if you can get Matthews 140 and down, you're good. If you went Rowe, you're going to want 130 and up on the value. Okay, so you guys kind of see where I'm going with this. It's just this fight's going to be a close one, but you don't want to. You got to be careful with the line on this fight there. But give me Matthews to sneak out a closely contested decision victory. We got a fun scrap over in the lightweight division. Grant Dawson taking on Joe Solecki. Grant Dawson, first and foremost, I can't even pull up his Instagram. I don't know if anybody can shed some light. I think he potentially blocked me, unless maybe he just disabled his IG. If anyone could clarify if they see Dawson's IG, because it's there, but if you click on it, it's just you can't see anything. As far as I'm concerned, I can't see anything. But if you guys know, I brought up a potential situation in regards to his last fight, which could have got to him. I don't know, but I'll quickly go over what I stated online, which was the fact that I thought that Dawson's last fight looked a little fishy. All right. And I'm not one to be one of those types of dudes, but I'm just saying it's not like I'm just making this stuff up out of nowhere. There was a couple things that were fishy about the whole situation. First and foremost, the fact that he is like the main disciple of James Krause. The way that he parted ways with him too was very strange. I went to American Top Team. Who knows what was going on there? But maybe that was a little bit of a move to kind of, maybe they had something planned where they wanted to kind of distance themselves a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking a little bit too deep into this, but I know his girl or his girlfriend or wife, she's someone that's very fond of MMA betting. I know she's on YouTube and she's diving into the betting lines and all these fights. You would think if someone's wife or girlfriend's that big into betting on MMA, obviously he's someone that's big into betting on MMA. And I just thought it would look a little weird the way he ran into that strike on Bobby Green. I understand Bobby Green's a quick and nasty striker, but I did not like the way that Dawson looked after he was tagged. He was not unconscious, and I didn't like the way he was squirming around, not even really trying to, or should I say the lack of his squirming. It's like he just rolled over and was waiting to be finished rather than, squirming around and rolling into a single or something like that, which we know Dawson's a very high caliber grappler. I just thought it looked fishy. It didn't pass the eye test for me. Do I need to go over the whole Krause situation with Minner and a lot of his disciples that came from Glory MMA Fitness, which again, Dawson, one of the original proteges of Krause. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. So just take that for what you will. Probably the odds are that that's not the case, but it was worth talking about. I think just a lot of things that were going on there. So as far as I'm concerned, I'll never trust Dawson again because if he didn't throw that fight, just the way that he ran into a Bobby Green shot and the way that he just welcomed the finish, the way he didn't try to fight and try to survive that, I really don't like what I saw from him there. Also, when you take into consideration the way he looked late against Ricky Glenn, where he was 10-8'd against Ricky Glenn after being up in the first two rounds and then just completely blowing that fight as well, and that fight went to a draw. He's had some weird situations in his fights. Also, he was losing, if you remember, against Leo Santos, talented fighter, a fighter that was very old but still had success in the cage. He was losing to Leonardo Santos almost that entire fight and got the finish with just 1 second left. So it's just some flaky performances, if you ask me. I was very high on him at one point in time, and I still do believe he brings in some raw tools. I mean, this dude has grappling. His striking has came a long way. He's a very diligent worker. He's been training over at American Top Team, sharpening his tools with Mike Brown and DP and all those guys over there. So I understand all that. You see him right in the background here too, fighting with Gordon. But I think there are some question marks in regards to Dawson here. Joe Solecki, on the other hand, not really a nightmare stylistic matchup for Dawson. He kind of plays into Dawson pretty well here. Solecki is a grappling-based fighter, a fighter that has high caliber BJJ, not really sold on Solecki striking. If you guys remember, we had Solecki on MMA Live Discussion. We had a nice conversation with him. Great dude. One of the more class act dudes I've ever interviewed. And I've always wished him nothing but the best in the cage. And it was tough to watch his last performance where he was slammed on his head. He was knocked out by close. Before that, kind of a tough outing. Eventually got that sub, but it was a little bit more difficult than some of us thought it would have been against Carl Deaton III there. Victories over low-level competition in the UFC. Jim Miller, but an aged Miller, Austin Herbert, whatever. I mean, listen, this is what it boils down to as far as I'm concerned. I'm not too worried about Solecki striking. I don't think that he finds that strike like Bobby Green did to even give Dawson a chance to flop to his back and be finished up there. I think that Solecki pushes heavily with the grappling, and that's going to be tough because Dawson has some serious wrestling and some serious grappling. He can nullify all that, and then Dawson is the better striker here. So you got to lean towards Dawson's way. He's the more complete mixed martial artist. If he shows up and his head's on his shoulders, he is the more complete mixed martial artist. He's the better fighter here. But if you want to play devil's advocate, I mean, the way that Green found that finish, I mean, can Solecki land some type of little left hook or something crisp like that? He's been working on his boxing skills, but overall, I'm not too high in them, but he's shown a little bit of development with the striking. Can he land some type of crisp strike there? Or can he pull off something similar to what Ricky Glenn did and just kind of make this a fight where, you know, he's pushing the pace and maybe Dawson makes a mistake and he can make him pay for it? All in all, I don't love to say this, but I am on Dawson, and I feel pretty comfortable Dawson's going to come through in this spot. I think this will be a bounce-back victory for him. Doesn't want to lose 2 fights in a row, and Dawson should go out here and shine. And the fact that Solecki's coming in this fight off that brutal KO, that's another X factor. Keep an eye on Dawson's kicks as well. He's a fighter that really he does cover his kicks up nicely, and he'll mix things up. He'll threaten with his hands, and maybe he gets a head kick up there. Maybe he head kicks Joe Solecki and knocks him out. To say that just in case that happens, because when I was breaking down tape, I don't know why, I kind of saw that as a potential ending to this fight. But I wouldn't be shocked if Dawson finds a finish in this fight. And we'll take a look at the betting line here. Dawson opened up as a -245 on BetUS. He's now a -340. So we got heavy action coming in on Dawson. I do not like Dawson up in the -300. So obviously I would have liked to grab this line a little earlier. I just think that there's some asterisks and question marks next to him going into this fight. Stylistically, it is a good matchup for him, though. Would I advise you to put any action on Dawson at this high line? No, I wouldn't. Where it is now, if it dips back 300 and under, then I think there's some value there. Maybe you guys don't like these answers I'm giving you, but that's kind of what I'm seeing here. I'm not crazy about taking Dawson as a leg in a parlay in the 340 range. If you get it maybe 310, try to get it a little bit down if you can. Otherwise, stay away from it. I just think that there's some question marks in regards to him in this spot here. And then if you guys want to just talk quickly, does someone find a finish in this fight? I'm going to say this fight goes to decision. I'm going to say that they lock horns quite a bit in the clinch. They grapple quite a bit, and I see a lot of time ticking off the clock. I'm going to say a decision victory for Grant Dawson. In the middleweight division, we have Roman Kopylov taking on César Almeida. Little tip of the hat to Almeida there. In his last fight, did come through on an official play for us as he defeated the hard-nosed wrestler who's trying to make a name for himself. Dylan Butka was not really that good of a showing for Butka. I know a lot of you guys, or some of you guys, thought stylistically it was a good matchup for Butka as he had the wrestling background. He was taking on the kickboxer, but I actually thought it was a tough fight for him because if he was going to struggle with those takedowns, we kind of knew how that fight was going to play out, and César Almeida was going to hurt him on the feet. And from the way that César Almeida looked in his fight on Dana White's Contender Series, for a fighter that has a kickboxing background, he's actually showcasing that he has a nice get-up game, and he's working on his takedown defense pretty well there. Almeida kind of reminds me of the first fighter that we spoke about on this card, obviously at very different ages, but still César Almeida and André Lima, two very talented strikers that have worked their way into the sport of MMA. And I think that you have to believe that the fact that they went that route has a lot to do with the success Alex Pereira has had in the cage. And we should continue to see that. We should continue to see a lot of these fighters with very polished striking backgrounds start to look to have success in the octagon and in MMA in general, specifically over in Brazil. Because Brazil is a country that has had a lot of talented kickboxers. Kickboxing is a very big sport in Brazil as well. I know it's kind of known for its Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but actually they have a lot of dangerous strikers. And César Almeida was one of them for a while. I mean, he has a victory over Alex Pereira back in the day. He went to battle with Donovan Wise. So, and another thing too is he's had some high caliber kickboxing matches, but he's not a fighter that has a lot of mileage on him. even though he's 36 years old. Not a lot of kickboxing fights. I don't think his chin has shown any signs of diminishing or anything like that. And if he can keep this fight standing, he should be the more fundamentally sound striker and the more fluid striker. And I say that while also noting that Roman Kopylov is a very dangerous striker. Fighting out of the southpaw stance, he has true fight-ending power in his strikes. He can throw head kicks up there, has nasty boxing. He's a very hard-nosed, tough fighter. He's a well-rounded fighter. But I would have to believe where he has the edge is, in this matchup, he has the edge as just being the more complete mixed martial artist. And I would like to see him changing levels and continuing to try to expose or kind of threaten Almeida's grappling. I think you have to go that route. At the very least, even if he's threatening with the takedowns and whatnot, that will make it harder for Almeida to go into cruise control with his kickboxing. I think you have to continue to change levels. Now, the problem with that is, though, is if Roman goes for those entries with the takedowns and whatnot, it could wear his gas tank down. Doesn't look good for the judges' scorecards if Almeida's having success stuffing those takedowns. And that's exactly what happened in Almeida's last fight. So I think that this is maybe a little bit of a trickier fight than some of you guys believe. If some of you guys are heavy on Roman here, as Roman's just a more proven mixed martial artist, a lot more MMA fights, and he's had high success against high-level opponents. Also noting that even though Almeida just had that victory in the UFC, it was against a very low-level fighter, a fighter that you could potentially argue is not a UFC caliber fighter. Okay, so when you mix all that up, I'm in agreement. For those of you that believe that, I am in agreement to an extent, and I am siding with Roman Kopylov here. But I do feel this fight could be a challenging fight for Roman. If he struggles changing levels and making this a complete MMA fight and just looks to have a kickboxing match with Almeida, which is something that we've seen Kopylov do quite often. He's a fighter that welcomes a kickboxing match. He could be in trouble. He's coming off a tough loss where he was really outmatched against Anthony Hernandez. Now, I will say this, and in that fight, I've been high on Anthony Hernandez before at times, but not extremely high. I think that was a coming out party for Hernandez, at least as far as I'm concerned. That was a fight where I really noted, I'm like, okay, I see what's up here. Anthony Hernandez is just a completely game fighter. He's extremely well-rounded. He could do it all. He's extremely tough, durable. He can eat a shot like very few. And I think that was a little bit more of the case than Kopylov got exposed. I still think that Kopylov's a dangerous fighter. He was on a 4-fight winning streak before that, all via knockout, knocking out Friend, Claudio Ribeiro, Seriano, Alessio Di Chirico. Not the highest caliber of fighters, but the way he went out there and finished all of those, I think that he still showcases he's a true threat. He's shown true durability in the Albert Durov fight. That was a fight where they went to war. He was bloodied up, broken nose and all that, and kept marching forward for 15 minutes. So I am going to be on Roman Kopylov here. I feel more comfortable siding with the true mixed martial artist. And again, just noting, I understand that Almeida is becoming a very well-rounded mixed martial artist quickly. I mean, this isn't a fighter that's just some kickboxer that doesn't know what he's doing as far as the grappling goes. He's definitely showing that he's picking it up quickly, but I still have to side with Roman Kopylov here. And let me just throw out this X factor. Sometimes with these kickboxers, especially, we haven't really seen Almeida just sit in a true kickboxing fight in the cage, right? In the MMA world, we haven't seen him just really exchange in a kickboxing fight, right? We've kind of seen him expose these fighters that were looking to take him down, and then he had success stuffing the takedowns and making them gas themselves out. What happens when Roman actually is willing to trade with him? Just a little X factor here. He's a dangerous striker. Almeida, maybe something happens similarly to what happened in the Gokhan Saki fight, where he's thinking it's just a regular old kickboxing match. He's getting comfortable rolling with shots, thinking he has those big gloves there, and he eats a shot and gets starched. So, I mean, there's that possibility as well. Just putting that out there. We've seen that happen a couple times. If you remember, was it Adashev in the flyweight division, the kickboxer that came in, got knocked out against Tyson Nam? Just put that out there as well. I like being on Roman's side. I think he's very hungry to bounce back with the victory here. 33 years old. He's still a primed fighter, and I think that he's eager to bounce back in the win column, and I'm going to side with him. He opened up as a -155 favorite, touched -125. This fight was almost pick 'em odds on BetUS there on May 17th, and now he is a -140. I like the value on Roman Kopylov. I like being on Kopylov's side. Again, we just cashed in cashed in on Cesar Almeida in his last fight, but this is a spot that's a little different for me. This isn't Dylan Buttkiss, all right, Dylan Bucka. All right, this is a different fighter. We're talking about a complete mixed martial artist who could potentially use his grappling to have success, but can also handle himself on the feet. Give me Roman Kopylov to win a decision with a good amount of blood flowing in this fight. I think that they do go to war, but I think both men make it to the last bell. Roman Kopylov via decision. We got Randy Rude Boy Brown taking on Zaleski dos Santos, who's now 37 years old. Zaleski, and has a good amount of pro experience, a lot of fights under his belt, but hasn't been extremely active as of the past couple of years. I would say the last 3-4 years hasn't been extremely active. Maybe that's good for him though. You know, maybe he's let his body rest up and his chin hasn't taken a great amount of damage and whatnot. And I think that 37 isn't as bad as it may look to some of you guys. I'm more on the side of actually Zaleski dos Santos has more to offer the fight game right now. This dude always seems to be in phenomenal shape. He's a true athlete. From what I hear about him, he's a wild dude. He's doing all types of crazy activities. I mean, this guy's a gamer. And, you know, this is actually a pretty good matchup for him. I like this matchup for him, and I'm glad the UFC gave him this matchup because he's a fighter that has put in a lot of work. When he's in the cage, he's put on a lot of entertaining fights, and I like this spot for him in the sense that Randy Brown is a fighter that gets a lot of respect. He's on quite he's won a good amount of fights. If you take a look at his recent fights, he's on he's on a 2-fight winning streak. But even before the Jack Della Maddalena loss, he was on a 4-fight winning streak. I mean, this is a fighter that has won 6 of his last 7. Okay, so this is a fighter that has respect on his name right now. He's been calling for some big fights. If Dos Santos can go out there and defeat him, it will do wonders for him in the tail end of his UFC career. And I also believe that Randy Brown is a little bit of an overrated fighter. I do think that. I mean, and we'll talk about the betting line here in a second. He's a very long and rangy fighter, a good athlete, more of a striking-based fighter, but is shown to be dangerous offensively with his BJJ, but is also shown to be lacking defensively down there. As you know, he was just submitted by, you know, let's not gloss over that loss there. He was submitted by the kickboxer, Jack Della Maddalena, which I say that kind of joking. I understand that Jack's trying to round his game out, but he's not that dangerous down there. I think that Zaleski dos Santos is a much more dangerous grappler and an underrated grappler because he's had some big knockouts before in the cage, but he's a well-rounded fighter, man. He can grapple. We've seen him go out there and expose strikers before. If you remember Curtis Millender, that was a fighter where, you know, he came in, or he didn't come in the UFC. He was in the UFC. He was kind of established, but he was a rangy athlete, and Zaleski took him down and submitted him in just over 2 minutes. Okay, so just understand that may be the scenario in this fight. Also, Zaleski is a proven warrior. I mean, the Benoit Saint Denis fight, I mean, did that not age well, going to war there for 15 minutes? The Alexei Kuchenko fight was a really tough match there. He ended up getting his hand raised. They went to war. You know, if not for like the Li Jingliang fight loss, I mean, he doesn't really have many losses, all right, in the octagon. He had one to Dalby in 2015, but after that, strung off victories against fighters like Omari Akhmedov, Lyman Good, Max Griffin, knocked out Sean Strickland with that spinning wheel kick, knocked out Luigi Vengermini. I know he never really ended up to be anything, but that was an undefeated newcomer at the time, and he shut the door on that. I mean, he's a gamer, man. He's an absolute gamer. Comes into this fight off another impressive performance where he dug deep and pushed to a draw against Renat Fakhretdinov, showing that he's just never out of a fight. Had a victory over Abubakar Nurmagomedov before that. I think he's a gamer, bro. I think you guys know where I'm going with my selection here. I think that Zaleski dos Santos is the way to go. He might be able to exploit Randy Brown down on the mat and pull off a quick sub. And if they trade on the feet, Dos Santos can hold his own there and could potentially end this fight there as well. So I am on Zaleski to get the job done here at 37 years old. I think he comes in phenomenal shape. I think he gets one big victory, at least one more big victory in the UFC, and I like him here. He opened as a plus 125, and we see action coming towards Randy Brown's way, and Zaleski's now plus 150. That's not a new story here. We've seen this with Randy Brown before. He's been overvalued on a lot of his betting lines. We've seen people really steam his lines before. People like him, and He gets the job done for the most part, but he's had some questionable performances. Give me Zaleski dos Santos to get a finish in this fight. I'm going to say he finds a finish, and it could be by way of an early sub. It could also be by way of knockout, but I think Zaleski finds a finish in the fight. Two of the most flaky fighters in the UFC, and be that both in the heavyweight division, squaring off with each other here, both ranked also, so that's interesting. Now, of course, these fighters have definitely shown flashes, and they do some things well, but I call them flaky in the sense of, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. First off, Almeida, we've known for a while now that he wants nothing to do with striking. I mean, this guy just goes for the grappling like it's nothing, and sometimes he has great success with it, but even in fights where he's not really having success doing any damage or finding finishes down in that mat, I mean, he just continuously goes to it, and he'll sit there for 25 minutes like he did against Lewis, which maybe you don't blame him after seeing Lewis again in his last fight, but still, you guys know what I'm talking about here, man. This is a fighter that has shown signs to not really have that dog in him. I don't think you could really bank on him to perform in a fight where he has to go to war. I think that he will break down, just like we saw him break down in that Curtis Blades fight. That was a very strange stoppage. The way that he kind of curled up there, I thought that he could have shown to have more fight. It's like he knew that he was going to struggle to have success doing what he wanted to do in that fight, which was to get takedowns and just control Blades and just make it a nice walk in the park. And it wasn't going to be that. And I think he just wanted an early exit. All right. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on him, but I really, as I just rewatched that fight again, I did not like what I saw from him in that fight. Now, his opponent, I could write a book about how flaky Romanov is. I will say this, though, in his own right, or, for the one thing he has going for himself is, in a lot of these performances where he's flaked out, it's been against high-level competition. I consider Tybura a pretty high-level fighter, Volkov a very high-level fighter. His loss that he had, this was a loss here against Juan Espino, if you didn't know. If you guys forgot what happened there, that was ridiculous. They went to the judges' scorecards after the first round only took place for 2 seconds with the low blow there, when it was Romanov that didn't want to continue, I believe. Yeah. And they scored the third round when it was only like 2 seconds and nothing happened but a groin strike, and they actually scored it for Romanov. But anyways, Romanov was done. He was getting whooped up. But Juan Espino is a very high caliber fighter, and I'm very upset that he just walked away from the game. A high caliber wrestler that striking was coming around, put in work at American Top Team. So against all those three horrible performances were against high level competition. I'll give him that. Bounce back with the victory against Blagoy Ivanov, but Ivanov's old. The dude looks like he's crippled out there the way he's moving. I mean, that guy looks like he needs to be at the chiropractor every day. He needs to hang the gloves up. So I don't put too much stock into that bounce back victory. And I think that Almeida will be, I mean, this is tough. It's tough to say that actually, because Romanov does come out quick in his fights. He looks to impose his will very early on. And then if he doesn't have success, he kind of throws the towel in. Both of them are very similar in that regard. So I think whatever fighter goes out here and imposes their will as soon as the bell rings is going to be the fighter that's going to have success. I think that whatever fighter comes in a little bit more mentally sharp and a little bit tougher, has a little bit more dog in them, will give the other fighter their chance to just kind of throw the towel in there. I like Jailton Almeida here. I'm siding with Jailton Almeida even after that atrocious performance he just had. If this fight turns out to be just a straight grappling match and we don't really see that fight ending situation, I also do feel that Romanov will be the fighter that gasses out more. He's shown major issues with his cardio. So in that case, I could see Almeida taking over with the grappling and go to a boring decision victory. Or I could also even see him putting himself in a superior position with his grappling and maybe getting a late finish as Romanov's just gassed and done. Okay, so you mix all that up together. I am on Jailton Almeida to get the job done here. He's a freak athlete. I definitely question the dog in him. I question it, and I will pick Jailton Almeida to win this fight. But don't say it with an overwhelming amount of confidence. I don't know, especially based on where this line is. He opened up as a -285. He's now a -240. It's a high line, so action coming in on Romanov, but I like Jailton Almeida to win the fight. I think Jailton Almeida wins this fight, but it's just kind of hard to back him and trust him after that last performance. This is going to be a fun one. We'll be cruising through the main card actually creeping up to the co-main event right after this. We got Kevin Holland taking on Michał Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk, he's had a tough time as of recently, but he's a game fighter. There's no question about that. And he's just 29 years old. He dropped down from the light heavyweight division to the middleweight division, which was definitely the proper move. He was extremely undersized for the light heavyweight division, even though he had success up there. He's a fighter that has some flaky performances as well. Subbed within just a minute in his last fight. Subbed by Caio Bahaio before 2 fights before that. But high caliber fighter. Both of the losses were against high caliber Brazilian fighters there, Michał and Caio. But I think that he is a game fighter. And even though he's had some questionable performances at times, like when he got submitted by Jimmy Crute, which a lot of other people had success against Crute, and submitted by OSP, we've seen OSP have those moments, and that was up in the light heavyweight division. I still think that Michał can right the ship in this division and can potentially hang around and have success and try to work his way to potentially being in fights where he's trying to break into the top 15. He's fighting the number 15th ranked fighter here in Kevin Holland. A victory over him would do wonders for him to get the path going that way. Holland's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage here. If I'm being honest, I think that this is a fight where Kevin Holland could have some success. And you guys know I'm not really a Holland guy, even though I always have to clarify because some of you guys get a little cringy with it and you think I'm taking this whole thing too serious. When I was having all that fun joking around, I know some of you guys got very defensive, all you Holland fans, but I like to have fun, and I hope I have more fighters that would engage like that, and we could joke around and do stuff like that, and maybe even set up some more fun things, but busting balls and whatnot. But eventually Holland couldn't take the heat, and he had to leave the kitchen as he blocked me on IG. If any of you guys still talk with Holland, let him know the teller, he's waiting for that press conference. I want to do a live press conference on YouTube where me and Holland go at it, and we got to set up a match. But, I say that messing around, but not really though. If he'll do it, let's do it. But Holland's a dangerous dude. Now listen, I faded Holland in his last fight, but it was a perfect spot to fade him in. It got dog value on Michael Page. I guess a lot of you guys just didn't understand how good of a fighter MVP was and stylistically how that fight was going to play out. They were going to strike it out. A lot of you didn't rerun the tape on the Wonder Boy fight. I don't know what you guys were thinking there. Shout out to everybody that cashed me though. That was a free play that we posted on YouTube. We did a whole video, and I potentially will be doing a free play for this card as well. Take note. But Holland's on a 2-fight losing streak, but against high caliber opponents. We faded him against Jack Della Maddalena as well, cashed on that. And I think that this is a little bit more of a welcoming matchup for him. Oleksiejczuk favors his boxing. He'll try to close the distance, but I think Holland is going to catch him on the end of his punches there with that long reach. I think he's going to land, and I could actually see Holland even finishing Oleksiejczuk in this match. Realistically, I could see a finish here. Now, Michał's only been knocked out once in his career. He's a pretty durable dude. Maybe Holland could kind of club and sub him, hurt him, follow him down to the mat, and lock up some type of sub. But I wouldn't be surprised if Holland finds a finish in this fight. And all in all, I got to be on the Holland side. I'll be rooting against him. You guys know that. We'll have fun with it. I'll be rooting against him. But I think this is a bounce back fight for him. So Holland right now is a minus 250 favorite. I'm not crazy about that line. I think that you could argue there's more value on the dog line, the plus 195 line on Oleksiejczuk. His losses as of recently were against high level opposition, but Holland is a good fighter. And as far as betting goes, I wouldn't be targeting Holland at a minus 250 line. I'll be sitting back with my feet up, rooting for Holland to get slept. Let's be real, guys. You guys don't forget, we are powered by BetUS. Sign up through the link in the description of this video. Get 125% matches on your first 3 deposits. And I got a lot to tell you guys, man. I got a story to tell you guys about something else, about a different sports book, how they did me dirty, how they're a dirty sports book. And there's other ones that are out there that are up to funny business. BetUS is not one of them, man. They're legitimate. They do a lot of solid bonuses. They do all types of stuff like that, and the payouts are solid. So please, if you sign up through that link and let me know so I can send you over a gift. Let me know if you sign up. Thank you, guys. Sean Strickland taking on Paulo Costa. Very fun fight. Sean Strickland looking to make a run back at had his old title, lost that title in a fight that you guys know I had him winning in. It was a very close fight. I thought they did him a little dirty there, as he was he was the champion, and I know that's not how it goes. It's not like if you're the champion, you win a close fight because you were the champion. But it was so close, and I thought he still edged it. But there we go again with that. I thought he slightly won it. And I thought that the fact that they took the belt away from him there, and maybe there was some merit to it, but something I've talked about before, when you have a polarizing personality like Sean, there could be a judge that doesn't like your personality, could be on the other side of the fence, and it's going to go against you. And it could also go for you too, but I think more so people, it's going to go against you, I think, with some of these judges, man, these weird little judges. But, to this matchup here, Sean Strickland's a phenomenal fighter, man. He really is. In this matchup here, the main way I could see him losing it would actually be if he gets clipped with the shot, gets knocked out, similarly to when he got knocked out by Alex Pereira or when he got finished by Zaleski dos Santos. We talked about that one. There's been moments where he's been cracked before. Paulo has some serious power. If he could land a big shot as they start to duke it out early on in this fight, that's a realistic possibility. As you see, he's on a rabbit diet here. That looks pretty damn good, if you ask me. Looks to be in phenomenal shape too. Sean has great cardio. You guys know his work ethic is ridiculous. He trains with some of the best fighters in the game, puts in a ridiculous amount of work. He's going to be prepared for Paulo. Paulo's a good fighter. He's a dangerous fighter, man, but he's kind of a fighter that has his highs and lows in the cage. He's not really dependable. He's not really the most reliable type fighter, and I don't think he ever really lived up to his potential. If you think about like when he was coming off his victory against Yoel Romero, people were really having high hopes for him, and I don't have high expectations for him. I know he had a big performance against Luke Rockhold. I don't put too much merit into that fight there. I know he's looked decent even in some of these losses, but I think the loss he had against Israel Adesanya sums him up more as a UFC fighter overall compared to even some of his bigger wins. I think that he's a fighter that will come up short in the big fights. Sometimes you'll have moments where he's looking better than others and he kind of rises back up to a level, but I don't think that he's a fighter that's going to go out there and take out Sean Strickland. I don't. I think Sean Strickland, as long as he doesn't get caught with that knockout shot, which you also have to note his defense has been looking better and better over the years, man. That Philly shell style, man, he's not getting touched. And as long as he avoids that big shot, I think that he outpoints Paulo. And, I think that's how it goes. I got Sean Strickland via unanimous decision. I think that he really pushes the pace and outlands Paulo. And I think he comes into this fight very hungry and motivated after the way that last fight played out. And I think we could see Sean Strickland in a title fight very soon here after a victory like this. He has the name and people feel that he shouldn't even have lost his belt, but Paulo absorbing 6.3 strikes per minute with the high output as well though. But this is a fight that should play out in a very fun way. And Sean Strickland, a man of the people. Give me Sean Strickland to win this fight via unanimous decision, and I say pretty comfortably. I'll say that he actually, not dominantly, but comfortably taken rounds from Paulo. And Paulo will have his moments, and he'll kind of make it a fun fight, but it'll be clear that he's losing these rounds. And also note, Sean Strickland with the 4-inch reach advantage. And good footwork, good Philly shell boxing from him. He outpoints Paulo here. Let's take a look at the betting line. Sean Strickland is a -215, just slightly over a 2-1 favorite here. And not bad, actually. If you like Sean there, it's not really that bad of a line. And keep an eye on the line. If you can get it under -200, that'd be great, I think. But even if you're grabbing it there, I'm not really opposed to it. I like Sean Strickland really from anything from like 230 and down. I have no problem with. Some of you may think that that's high, but I think Sean Strickland's going to go out here and snag up this W. You guys better be following me in IG at MMA Fortune Teller _. I got a lot of wild new content coming your guys' way. And a lot of you guys want to keep up with my bet picks. It's the quickest way. I could post them to you. You could check my story as well. You see the teller popping the bag up and whatnot. Listen, make sure you're following me on IG and Twitter, but specifically IG. Follow me on both. All right, guys, I'm telling you, I will have some great content coming your guys' way. I'm working on all these dope graphics. I'm working on one right now where it's who is the pound for pound, my top 8 pound for pound rankings. And also, I post stuff, free plays and whatnot too. So just please go follow me at MMA Fortune Teller _ on IG. Hey guys, real quick, if you want my official plays for this big event, do not hesitate to reach out to me. Got my email scrolling below as well as my social media down there. Shoot me a DM or a message, and I will give you guys details on how to get my official plays. This is a big time card. We're going to have some big time plays. We're coming off a clean sweep, a 4-for-4 clean sweep. Profited almost 13 units on that last card, and we're looking to take those units and really push forward on this event here. Do not hesitate to reach out to me. Here we go. We hit the main event. Now, if you guys didn't know, I did a video on this match already. Essentially, what I did was a breakdown on the fight, but we kind of talked about the avenue Dustin Poirier would have to go down to get his hand raised, which is not the most likely. But if he's going to get a W in this fight, we noted that the way he finished Benoit Saint-Denis in that last fight, caught him with that lead right hook, which is actually his power hand too. Caught him with that. As they were exchanging, of course, he was using his takedown defense to keep the fight standing, make it more of a brawling type affair. And we noted how Benoit Saint-Denis is similar to Islam in the sense that southpaw fighter, very well-rounded, can impose his grappling skills on you or can try to knock you out and hurt you on the feet as well. But again, Islam Makhachev is a much more refined fighter and arguably the best pound-for-pound fighter in the game. So it's a little different, but still, that's what Poirier needs to do. I don't want to see Poirier throwing leg kicks. I don't want to see Poirier searching for guillotines. I want to see him just sprawling and using his boxing skills, pushing the pace, trying to make this a very ugly fight. Islam will try to slow the pace down and just use his technique to outclass DP here. And this is such a tough fight for DP. And I think you guys know I am on Islam Makhachev to get the job done here. I mean, I think the majority of us are. Now, like I said, though, if you guys want to check out the video that I did about what DP would need to do to get his hand raised, and also dissect this fight overall much more, and just talk about what Islam's most likely going to do here to get the job done, which is either potentially land that big strike on DP, like we just saw DP knocked out by Gaethje, maybe a head kick, something like that. We just saw Makhachev knock out Volkanovski, showing evolution with his striking. Or even if the fight goes to the later rounds, probably Islam does what Khabib did to DP, or what Charles Oliveira did to DP, getting a third-round submission, fourth-round submission later in the fight. So it's going to be tough for DP. I'm rooting DP on for sure. I don't know if this will be the scene when it's all said and done, though, after the event. I hope it is. This will be DP's last opportunity to become the undisputed, legitimate lightweight champion of the world. Not an intern lightweight champion. This is his last chance to get that real championship strap across his waist. And he knows that. He wants to be the real champion. He's talked about that intern before. You heard him on Theo Von. And you got to understand, I'll just say this real quick too. DP talked about how after his loss to Justin Gaethje, he was mentally going through it, and how he really needed that win against Benoit Saint-Denis, and how he was struggling mentally and like really coming from a dark spot. I'll say this much, man. I said this after he said that, and I noted it on a prediction video we talked about before, but it's inevitable that DP is going to take some losses in the cage again. If he's going to continue to fight, he's 35 now, he's going to take more losses. So it's not going to be all rainbows and sunshine and all that. So he needs to figure it out, man, because I don't want to see him go down that road. You know, I really hope that he figures everything out after he takes probably a finish loss in this fight. He better not be down on himself. He needs to enjoy the work that he's put in throughout the years. He needs to enjoy having his beautiful family and all that. And mentally, he needs to be okay, because this is a guy that's taking a lot of brain damage. Okay, we could be talking about CTE and whatnot. You put some of the fighters, you put a Mount Rushmore of fighters that taken brain damage. And I'm not talking about just getting knocked out, but just going to war. I mean, you think about the Dan Hooker fight, the Max Holloway fight. I mean, this is the Gaethje fight. I mean, the Eddie Alvarez fights. This guy has gone to war for years. And I just hope that mentally he'll be okay as his career winds, and he probably gets finished up here. Hopefully it's a submission loss and not a brutal KO loss, though. And I'll be rooting for DP hard. Check out the video that I did on this fight. You could see a little bit more of my thoughts on it. And as far as the betting line goes, though, Islam right now, the line is getting steamed. He's back up to -600. When I did that other video, he was like a -445, and I talked about how that wasn't a bad leg in a parlay. That's kind of how I'm feeling. I like Islam even with the high line. Now 600, it's pushing it though. You're getting a very high line on him there. I would say 600 is not worth it, but anything from 550, 500, 500 and down, you could potentially play with. And in the 400 range, you were sitting nice kind of. But I want to be rooting on DP. We'll see how the fight goes. Definitely. I'm trying to figure something out. You know, I stopped doing the recaps of the cards. I kind of got tired of just doing those little simple recaps. Oh, this is what happened in this fight. I'm trying to think of a more entertaining way to do it, because I do want to recap a fight like this, but I'm trying to think of something that's more fun. If anyone has any ideas, if you guys can, comment below, please. Something I could do where I could recap some of the fights and we could talk about the bets I targeted, which I do post on Instagram. You could check those out as well. I want to try to post more of those. I'll post them on Twitter and Instagram more. I want to keep you guys, you know, in the light of what I'm doing, but I don't know. I kind of got bored of doing those recap videos. I kind of wanted to start to get ready to do the new card. And I also wanted to kind of talk about different stuff in the fight game, but any ideas is welcome if you want to comment below. Guys, that's going to wrap up UFC 302. Got to leave you guys with some parting words. I wish you guys all a profitable event for sure. Hopefully you guys all have a blast on the night. And I think this will be a very fun fight card. I'll say this to you guys. Make sure you guys have good balance in your life. Make sure you're focusing on your balance of your life. Sometimes you get caught up doing the same things over and over, and a lot of you guys don't even realize it. You fall victim of the same habits. Sometimes you need something to shake you up a little bit and break you out of your shell, and then you don't understand how bright a light can be right on the other side of a wall. So make sure that, you know, we're all diehard fight fans. Make sure you're always, you're watching the fights, you enjoy it, but make sure you have balance in your life socially. Make sure you're taking care of your body, and specifically socially. For any of you guys that struggle, I see a lot of people, like through the grapevine, friends of friends or family, whatever. I see it like from a distance. So a lot of kids got caught up like being trapped inside their house a lot, playing video games and just sticking these screens in front of their faces. I know some of you guys may not want to hear it, but let's be honest. I'm sure there's some of you guys that are listening to this that are like that. You guys gotta break out of that, man. I'm telling you, you guys do not know what you're missing. Even if you never notice it, then I guess they say what you don't know doesn't hurt, but still, man, you guys, you got to break out of your shell, man. Go enjoy life. If it feels a little bit of anxiety ridden, if you're not used to that, eventually you'll get out of that habit, or you'll get out of those feelings, and you'll embrace life a little bit more, and you won't be as nervous interacting with people. And it feels so good once you master it. It feels really good to bump into good people. And, you know, if you're a single guy mingling with the ladies, having a good time, it feels great when you guys can, you know, feel good and you can enjoy yourself, and you guys know what you're doing out there, and it takes practice and put in some work, put in some time in it. And there's nothing like it. None of those video games, none of these things you're staring at the screen doing will never compare to that. I'm telling you guys. And you don't have forever. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Eventually you start to get old. Eventually things happen also. So you gotta, when you're young, take advantage of it. Don't be waiting around too long. I'm telling you, because it creeps up on you and you will have regret. I'm telling you guys now. So tell you guys that. So light a fire under your ass. Go do something. Go out there. Go socialize. Don't let little bad experiences discourage you from continuing to go down that path either. All right, guys. Leave you with that. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.